Welcome in live to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Today we are staying in the SEC and we're continuing with our preseason team reviews. And we got the Texas A&M Aggies. Jimbo Fisher is one of my favorite coaches in the country. He's brought in a very, very good recruiting class year after year for the Aggies. And this team is really talented. There's a question mark at the QB position. But other than that, the guys around the quarterback and on the defense are very, very good. We watched a couple of the games last year. We liked what we saw. Minus that Bama game, this A&M team was really, really good, beating teams like Florida. We're excited for what they have and what they're bringing back this year. Without further ado, we're going to jump right in and kick it over to Dill for his overview of the team.
So I'm with you. I mean, Jimbo Fisher, definitely not a hot take to say he's a top three, possibly top five at least coach in the this game right now. And yeah, he's obviously moving that program in the right direction. I think Kevin Sumlin never really got it anywhere. I think he had the year with Johnny Manziel and Sumlin's name got a little big and the program got some notoriety, but they never played consistent football under him. And it seems like they're possibly moving in that direction. I mean, looking at what they're coming in, they're going to bring back a lot of offensive skill. That's what jumps right off the page for you. It's they're bringing back Isaiah Spiller and Devin Akane, who I thought played really good football too. I mean, everyone knows about Isaiah Spiller. He's a dog, but they're bringing back Jalen Weidermeyer, who's my favorite tight end probably this year by a reasonable amount, unless maybe you count Michael Mayer. He could probably be in that conversation, but I love Jalen Weidemeyer and bringing back again probably their best offensive pass catcher in Aeneas Smith, maybe outside of Weidemeyer, I should say, but he was the bus driver of that wide receiver room, and so they're bringing back their best offensive skill players, which will help them because those guys are all very, very good players.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, this offense is really talented. I guess we can address the quarterback competition, and then we'll kind of get into the skill players. But I think you're right. The skill around whoever is going to start at quarterback is really good. Getting into the quarterback battle, I've been reading a lot about it. I watched the spring game. It's between Zach Calzada and Haynes King. Calzada is more a traditional pocket passer, and from what I've been reading, I think they're going to go with whatever they're trying to have at the offensive position. So Calzada is more of that pro style. We're going to establish the run. We're going to throw from the pocket. We're going to eat clock. And we're going to possess the ball. Haynes King is much more of that spread offense. He's really good outside of the pocket. Jimbo Fisher says he's one of the best athletes on the team. He's got track speed, really, really fast, really, really good with his feet. Can throw off different platforms. And so he's kind of more fit for that running gun, get the quarterback going, spread everything out, let the players play in space. And I think if A&M wants to go that route with this offense, I think we'll see Haynes King. And if they want to go –
the space route makes sense based on kind of what they have. I mean, Aeneas Smith is much more of a spacey guy. He's not a mid-range catch the ball. He's a get the ball in space and let him go to work. I think Isaiah Spiller and Devin Akane both kind of fit you want those two in space. And
Isaiah Spiller, he's a little bit more downhill than a Chaney.
Yeah,
I think it's Chaney, but I'm not positive. I've heard it a couple different ways, so I'm not positive either. But yeah, so I think that's if you want to compete for like a national title, you're not going to win championships playing that pro style. You even seen Alabama go to more of that spread, run and gun kind of thing. I think Haynes King is more of that guy for them. I think Jimbo Fisher's liked what he had with Kellen Mond and a guy who can he puts a little pressure on the defenses with his feet. And so I think Haynes King, from what I'm reading, Haynes King has the edge. Jimbo Fisher has said time and time again that it's a competition and both of them are getting a fair shot. And at the end of the day, Jimbo Fisher's been really solid with quarterbacks. Kellen Mond, Jameis Winston, he's done really good developing good quarterbacks. So I trust Jimbo Fisher's going to get the right guy to lead this offense. Now let's get into the skill positions. Isaiah Spiller and Devin Achaney, you touched on him. Very, very good running back duo. And I think really, really complement each other really well. Isaiah Spiller, 6'1", 225 pounds. He's downhill bruiser. Achaney's got track. He's like one of the fastest players in the college football. I think he runs on the track team. He's got like USA Olympic track speed. So he's kind of more of that special. And he actually moves. I think a lot of times, and Dill, I'm interested to hear what you have to say about it. He only had 43 carries, so it's not a huge sample size. But when you see him run, a lot of those track guys just go in a straight line and they have trouble kind of sticking their foot in the ground, changing direction, and being shifty. I didn't really see that with the Cheney. I thought
he's a small guy, right? I mean,
yeah,
I think more of the issue is when you're a taller, maybe a longer wide receiver. Yeah, you have the issue with the getting in and out of cuts. But I think, he can't be much more than 5'9", 5'10", and usually that height profile makes it more practical to be fast and still kind of get in and out of breaks, and which you got to do as a pass catching running back, which I kind of think is his role in that offense.
Right now it is. I think he will, because he was a true freshman last year. So I'm fully confident that when it's his turn, he's going to be really good for them. But Isaiah Spiller's definitely
the thing is Spiller is still he's going to be the guy taking the carries, because he's super versatile in terms of what he can do. And I mean, I know that you calling him a bruiser, I think that it diminishes a little bit what he really does, because I think he's very much more the all-purpose guy who can do it in space.
Yeah,
he can do it in between the tackles, but he's not a Brandon Jacobs or an Eddie Lacy type.
No, I don't mean it like that. I think maybe the better word is just a bell cow and more like a Breece Hall, so like a guy who's big, 220, I think he's 225, so 225 running back who he can take 20 to 25 carries a game and be fine. I don't know if you can give a Cheney 25 carries right now and that'll be okay. So I guess that's what it kind of meant. Isaiah Spill's a complete back. He's also in my top 5 in the 2022 draft class. So I think the running game is going to be really good. Let's get to the wide receiver room, which Anaya Smith is one of my favorite players to watch in the whole country. I'm sure he jumped out of the film, and they move him around. So he's in the backfield. They play him at running back, play him in the slot. Pretty much all you got to know is you got to get the ball in this kid's hands in space, and you're going to like the result. Just unbelievable in space, unbelievable with the ball in his hands. I think in terms of maybe prospect, like looking at wide receiver prospects, you'd like to see a little bit more polish out of him. Kind of maybe like a little bit like Kadarius Toney, in the sense that you get him the ball and he's just magic. Maybe not the cleanest route runner, or he definitely doesn't have like the biggest catch span. But he's one of my favorite players to watch. A very, very good player for the Aggies for sure.
Yeah, and I think so. He'll definitely. God, it's hard to say he's going to be a leader, because I love Jalen Weidermeyer in terms of what he does, and he to me was the guy who was the go-to guy, generally speaking, when they needed completions. He was generally getting in Weidermeyer's hands. Now I don't think they're so deep in that wide receiver room. You might disagree, but they didn't, in terms of Chase Lane, Chapman, and Hezekiah Jones. None of them really produced at a particularly high level last year.
Well, Chapman was on a roll. He was on a roll until he got hurt. He only played 3 games last year. So he got hurt in that Florida game, halfway through that Florida game. So he had 300 yards or 200 yards in almost 3 games. So he was actually kind of running.
I really realized that.
He was giving Florida fits for a while. He's more of that big body possession. He's got to run pretty tall. I'd be 6'5". So kind of like a tight end frame, but kind of skinny. Definitely like a jump ball kind of guy. Throw the ball up get the ball up in the air, let him go track it. Kind of basketball player-esque. They got Demond Demas, who was a former top 20 recruit, 5-star. He was a true freshman last year. We didn't really see any of him really. I think he's going to be maybe, hopefully, for the Aggies, take the next step. And then obviously you got guys like Chase Lane who produced last year. So I think their wide receiver, their pass catching unit is a little it's just different, because their leading guy is Jalen Wademeyer. Their second leading guy in my mind, Aeneas Smith, is more of like a scat bet, like an all-purpose guy. Chase Lane is probably one of their more polished wideouts, and hopefully Chapman and DeMoss can kind of add to that. But yeah, it's kind of weird because they don't have like a Justin Ross or Chris
They just
Olave.
they don't have an alpha dog wideout.
Yeah, they don't. But
as much as I like Aeneas Smith's game, I mean, he's not really a one. He's just more of a gadget player.
He's a gadget guy, but he's a good.
But they don't have it. Yeah, no, he's electric. But like, that makes me even think more. It's got like, how are you going to play a pocket passer with this group of wideouts? Because I think, with the exception of Weidemeyer, you don't have a dependable. Unless you, I mean, Chapman. Yeah, you wish you could have seen a little more. Just generally. Just not talent wise, just health and being able to play, because he did play well against Florida. But I mean, if you believe in him being able to step up and be that number one and kind of be at the wideout position, like, you maybe can think you can go with the pocket passer. But this offense to me looks more sensible to have a dual threat.
Yep, I agree 100%.
System, sure. just because it's kind of a really good skill room in general, but it is a little lacking as pure wide receiver play in a sense. And then if we kick it down to their offensive line, I think we're going to disagree here, but they're returning one starter off the unit from last year in Kenyon Green, and then bringing in the transfer from Tennessee, Jameer Johnson, who was a player there, but other than that, they got to replace the interior three guys and kick Kenyon Green from a really good left guard to a left tackle, which to me, he's probably going to be a guard in the NFL. So you're going to get worse at left. You might get worse at left tackle and get worse at left guard. That almost seems like when you're bringing back this light of a unit, it almost seems like you should probably just stay at guard at that point. But
it depends what you have. If he's your best player, you probably do want to get him out at left tackle.
Jameer Johnson, if he's not going to be a great left tackle, I don't see it.
I mean, in the spring game, I think there was he lost. There was one glaring rep where he just didn't get outside, and he kind of just got beat with a little speed rush. And he is just a bigger body guy. Let me get his weights here. Yeah, 325, and he's kind of short for 325. He's only 6'4", so that's a little bit concerning. He is a certified dog, though. Like, he just moves bodies. So if he can make it work, that'll really help that offensive line. I think he will, too, because I don't think he'll be a liability. I understand what you're saying, where it's like if he's just a dog at guard, leave him at guard, let him be dominant where he can be dominant, as opposed to like taking him out of a place where he can be dominant and where he might not be as dominant outside and with more space to work with. Jameer Johnson, I think, coming over from Tennessee, he's got a good body. I think Tennessee, I was kind of not surprised because everybody's leaving that program, but I think that's a good addition. Even if he doesn't start, I mean, that's good depth for you. But I do agree. I worry a little bit about that offensive line just because they do bleed out a lot of guys.
That was also a really important position, a position they played really high level at for the most of the year last year. Yeah. So it's like, I mean, if you're going to want to run the ball consistently and throw from the pocket and use play action, like I don't know that they have the offensive line to do it exactly how they did it last year, where Spiller was taking a lot of carries and a lot of their play was Kellen Mond, he wasn't used as much of a runner as maybe you would have thought. He only had 294 yards, which is kind of, which really isn't that many.
Yeah, it's not like that
what he does. So it's like they were more using him to throw out of the pocket, and I mean, if you can't deal with guys on the inside, which we'll see what they can do, but they're bringing in 3 new players to replace a really good unit. I think that is a little concerning when you think.
And if there is a comment, if there's a one negative about Jimbo Fisher, he hasn't recruited that position that well. I mean, I was looking at like 24/7 Sports, and I was looking at kind of these guys who are looking to come in and start for A&M this year. What do they look like in high school? Like, their best guys are their wide receivers and their defensive line. they didn't recruit like the offensive line outside of Kenyon Green, who was a big name out of high school. They don't have a ton of guys who are top 50 prospects in the country at that offensive line. I'm not saying they're not going to be good, and obviously, like, you don't need to be a 5-star recruit to be good at the college level, but it's one of those positions that they're not just dripping with talent like some of the other positions. So, I mean, rounding out the offense, I think it's a really good unit around. I'm going to say Haynes King's their starter. I really do believe he'll be the starter, kind of like what we talked about. It might not be the best pockets, the cleanest pockets to throw from, and it might not be the best run game. It might be a little bit more spread him out, beat him on the perimeter. And so I think Haynes King is more I think he has the better tools to do that. And so I think that's why I think they can make it work with this offensive line. But I do agree with you. I do understand what you're saying where they might be a little bit weak. Um, let's get to the defensive side of the ball where this is the strength of the Aggies team. This might be, I think, outside of Georgia, outside of Alabama, maybe Clemson. A&M's a top 5 defense. I mean, you can make an argument they're the best defensive unit in the country. I wouldn't put them over Georgia, Bama, Clemson, but this defense is really, really good. I'm kind of excited to get through and like get onto who they have on defense. I'll start with obviously DeMarvin Leal. He's really good. They kind of move him around. They sometimes play him inside, sometimes, or most of the time he plays edge. He's more of a defensive tackle prospect when you're projecting to the NFL, but he's a really good ball player. He's just super disruptive. Let me see his tackles for loss.
Well, because he can do both. That's like he's a really versatile college player where you can play him on early downs on the edge and then kick him in on late downs, which I mean that never hurts. I'm with you. I do see him more as a D tackle because he doesn't exactly have like bendy edge speed, but he really uses his hands well and sheds blocks. So if you can do that, you can make plays. And I mean, he had a very good year last year, in addition to Michael Clemens,
who's really good. I like him.
More of the pure edge guy in my mind, and he had a really strong year too. So when you can get pressure on the ball on the quarterback in today's day and age with your down linemen, you put yourself in a position, I feel like, to be a very good defense. And it seems like with those two, they're going to be able to do that this year at a really high level.
Yeah, I think DeMarvin Leal and Michael Clemens are one of the better edge duos in the country. On the inside, I think I really like, let me get his name. It's Jaden Peavy. He's just a force. I think he runs a little heavy. I don't think he plays all through. I didn't really see him playing like 3 downs. Definitely more of like that zero tack, like really space eater, but he's really good. I like his game a lot when it comes to stopping the run. And then I think they're really young at the defense. I think they got McKinley Jackson, who was a true freshman last year, who looked good. I think he was a 5-star top 60 recruit. And I think him and Jaden Peavy will be a really good duo for them. And then they got Isaiah Rakes, who's coming in 320. He'll be ready to rock and roll too. So that D-line is pretty good. DeMarvin Leal and Michael Clemens are definitely the studs of that D-line, but it should be a solid unit. Linebacker, do you have any sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Do you have anything to say on that D-line?
No, I just broadly speaking agree. Is they're going to probably be built. That'll kind of be their MO. It just seems like being able to rush the passer with the down 4 and because they usually play a 4, right? They don't. I mean, sometimes they'll play like a 3, but on later downs, I remember. But generally, they play a 4-3 or some variation of 4-2, whatever you want to go there.
They're actually pretty traditional 4-3. I think they played with the nickel a lot, but they're pretty almost every time pretty at 4-down linemen, pretty traditional with that. But they're good. Like Michael Clemens, Leal, Peavy, and Jackson, they're all really good ball players who you got to be excited about. At line, I mean, they obviously lose Bobby Brown, but I think he was good. I don't mean to say he's not good, but I think Buddy Johnson is of that linebacker is much harder to replace. He did seem like he was just kind of all over the field. He had 86 tackles. The next highest on the team was 49. He was in the backfield. I think Buddy John, he had 4.5 tackles for a loss, 4 sacks. He really just did it all for that team.
But at the end of the day, he wasn't a particularly high draft pick, which makes me think like, okay, he may be a little more replaceable than those numbers indicate. Because I mean, you can put the stats up, but if you're not impacting games at a super high level, generally you
Are you
don't.
talking about the
slip right
linebacker?
to
Are you talking about linebacker?
Buddy Johnson is just like,
okay.
I mean, his stats, like, you kind of think you're losing a Micah Parsons-esque type player, someone who Devin Bush, like guys who you think of, Devin White in the past.
Yeah, I
were
wouldn't
like
call him Devin Bush,
premier
but he was
guys
good.
who you couldn't like. I mean, when you see those teams, they just can't replace them. I think LSU really struggled to replace White. Michigan certainly struggled to replace Bush, but I don't know that Buddy Johnson will be at that level because his stats are certainly good, but it's like, are you getting more of a Scooby Wright type stat sheet than but like, because when I watch him play, he's not like flying around all the time to me. He doesn't change the game in my mind. He's a very good player and like he's gonna be a loss, but I don't think you're gonna see a dead drop in the production there. And I think if you were gonna see that, he wouldn't have fallen so far in the draft. I don't even know if he did get drafted in the end, but
yeah, maybe I don't know if I think he's probably a little better than you have him, but yeah, he's no like unreplaceable. Like when Michigan lost Devin,
like why do you think he's sliding in the draft then? Like, what do you think people are missing that we don't see?
Maybe just like elite athletic traits, and we can look up his athletic
I'm not worried about
numbers.
the measurables, but like when you watch that team, you don't see like, ooh, there's a first round pick. You don't see Buddy Johnson as that. Like when you watch,
but that's
watch Devin White play college football, you knew, ooh, that guy's.
Well, what I'm saying is, it's just because he isn't a Devin Bush or Devin White doesn't mean that he like won't be a loss for the team. I feel like you're saying like, oh, if he's not a first round linebacker, like it doesn't matter. Like it certainly does.
I do think it matters a lot because I'm just, in terms of like the level of drop you're going to get, I think there is a huge difference. Like Buddy Johnson's stats are awesome, no denying that. But if you're not doing it in the way that like you're impacting the game fully, like teams could still run what they wanted to run. Like Devin Bush, Devin White, like those top tier linebackers, when you lose them, your team, like your defense just looks different. Everything about it looks different.
Yeah. I'm not saying he's
that. Like you better hope you get a massive pickup in the level surrounding everybody else. And I don't see that as Buddy Johnson. As much as good as the stats are, I think they're going to be able to replace them and kind of roll through it than
let's talk about
premier linebackers.
Let's talk about who replaces him. I mean, Aaron Hansford's a guy. He was a 2016 guy, so he's one of those COVID super seniors. He was good for them. I think he was second in tackles for them. Had 4 TFLs, 3 sacks, a pass breakup. Like he was good, and I think that's talking about trying to replace kind of a vet leader at that linebacking unit. Hansford will be able to do that. I think Andre White Jr. is probably the next guy up. Both of them are solid linebackers. I think their job will be made easier with a good defensive line up front in Michael Clemens and DeMarvin Leal. And so a dominant defensive line takes a lot of pressure off some linebackers who you might have questions about. Even though I don't have too much questions about them, they both got on the field and looked decent. I thought Hansford was pretty solid. So I'm not too worried about the linebacking core. I want to talk about the secondary really quick because I think this is where it's really strong. I think Leon O'Neal, from what I'm reading, is kind of their leader. I think if any Texas A&M Aggie fans follow him on Instagram, you know he's been putting in the work in the offseason. His body looks tremendous. He's got, I mean, in terms of an NFL prospect, he's got really good length. I think he runs about 6'2", 210. He moves well. He's just got a good feel. I feel like he's always kind of around the football, breaking up passes. worked really hard in the offseason. He talked about it in an interview, just making himself uncomfortable, changing his body composition. Should be a good unit. Jalen Jones at cornerback was I think he was like the highest recruit in their 2020 class. He was a really, really good. I mean, I shouldn't say really, really good, because when he played Alabama, it kind of looked. There's just some blown cover in that Alabama game. It was less of just like you're not there yet, and more of what were we doing? There's a lot of Devontae Smith's running, and everybody's hands are up.
Yeah.
Like, what happened? Like blown coverage type thing. But they're like good athletes, good high school recruits. So you kind of got to be excited about that too.
Yeah, I mean, the only issue is they did give up some points to the teams that threw, notably Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, and Alabama. And those were the three teams that were going to test them in the air. And they both, like, I think they played pretty good against North Carolina, but they did give up 27. And if I recall watching that game, they gave up a little bit of big play strikes, or a few more than you'd maybe like to see. So I think as good as the unit could be, like, they're going to need to make a significant jump in terms of, and it's great if they're getting them all back and solid players. So you just make a little bit of a progression, and you take yourself from a good defensive secondary, which is kind of where their rank says. Like, they were 56 nationally, which is actually a little lower than you would think in terms of how many yards passing they were giving up. They were second in the SEC though, so that maybe balances out because the SEC has a lot of talent throwing the ball. So
yeah, they only gave up over 300 yards passing to two teams, and that was Florida and Alabama, which were his last year easily the two best offenses.
Yeah, no. So they're like, that 56 national is probably a little juke just because the SEC is
Alabama.
If you're gonna be able to like defend people in the pass, like, you're gonna need to be really good. So I think generally they were. I think they did have a kind of a light schedule, frankly. Last year they missed out on Georgia.
Definitely did, especially as bad as LSU was, as bad as Auburn was. It was not a great schedule. I mean, that 9-1, they were good and they were an impressive team. I think one of the most disrespected teams in the country, because they got, beat pretty bad by Alabama. It's tough
when you get speed bagged like that, though. Right off the year,
they lost. Yeah, exactly. But other than that, they didn't lose a single game and beat Florida, who pushed Alabama later on in the season. What I'm saying is they probably were a better team than Notre Dame last year, and I think a lot of Aggie fans agree.
I'd agree with that.
And I think everybody would have liked to see them play again. And one thing I want to know is if this Texas A&M team had Kellen Mond coming back, I'd be very, very close to considering them like a bona fide play. They are a bona fide playoff contender, bona fide national champion contender.
I think they're there because they could definitely sweep the West. They are going to have to probably go against Georgia this year in the regular season,
which is so good this year.
Which hurts because that'll give them.
They do have Alabama at home though, so
no. I'm looking at this. Do they have Georgia?
No, they don't have Georgia.
They don't have Georgia, which is actually nice because that'll.
Well, you'll have to play Georgia in the championship game, though. 100%.
Well, that's the point, though. If they go 12-0 and lose to Georgia in the championship game, like that, they might. They definitely might, and I think they have a shot to do it because I think Bama's good coming back, but I think you're right with A&M is if that secondary can take a jump combined with what's going to be a really good defensive line, like they might be able to make it very hard to throw. As it was last year, quite honestly. Like, they did give up some big plays, I think.
And this is a good secondary.
When they played the big teams, they gave up big plays. That's kind of how I see it. I think they gave up big ones against North Carolina. They gave up big ones against Bama, certainly, and they gave up a few against Florida. So if they can kind of tighten up just that unit and be a little more stout against those top-tier teams, like, this defense can take it really to the next level and really be competitive
I think that's the biggest thing is this defense was good last year. It was really good, and they lose two guys. And two guys that I think we both agree – sorry, I get this light out of the way. Two guys that I think we both agree are very, very beatable. They
weren't losing first-round picks. That's essentially how I kind of see it is they lost – Buddy Johnson was a fourth. round pick, which is okay. I mean, no, just nothing to sneeze at, but that makes me think you're kind of losing a Scooby, right? Like a guy who, or a Manti Te'o, like the season just worked out really well, but it's not like you're a kid, like a dominant player. You're not like changing games, because if you are changing games, you're picked in the first round. That's just how I see it. And so I love what they have. They're bringing back most guys, and if their offensive line, they can bring back a competitive bunch, I do see this team
Yeah,
being
that's
able
the
to
only question mark, right? Like that's the
very much
only. Yeah.
compete with the Alabamas. The only thing I will say is their past history against Alabama is
So
like
bad.
horrific, because they
So
don't
bad.
just get beat, they get beat. And it makes you think like, wow, Texas A&M is way far off. But then they go and they play everybody else really tough. So we're gonna see. I think like this is
This
a
is an
big year for
exciting team
them.
to watch. Yeah.
It's almost like Jimbo needs to fight Alabama at the bare minimum this year. Like he can't go in there and just get rolled
Get
up
beat
and,
bad. I
look
agree,
like your high
100%.
school team. So
All right. Well, let's close out with what we've started to do, a fun little exercise to kind of get maybe what we like to call just like we set power numbers and see how those power numbers line up against what Vegas has. Do you have the win total, or if you could grab it?
yeah,
I'll start going through the schedule, marking wins and losses, and we'll see what we have. I'll pull up the to get the playoffs. So we got Kent State.
Oh well, that's an easy win.
Kent State's a win. Colorado's a win. New Mexico's a win. That's 3-0. Arkansas's a win, 4-0. Mississippi State win, 5-0. Alabama, will give them a loss just because I'm not gonna. I think it's very, very winnable in College Station, but they haven't done anything to make me feel confident that they're going to knock Bama off. They go to Missouri. I think they win there. I think they beat South Carolina. I think they beat an Auburn team that I really think is going to take a step back. Ole Miss, I think they win. They'll just run the ball right down their throats. That's a really weird. They play Prairie View A&M in November 20th. It's kind of a weird. That's a win. And then at LSU, I'm guessing this is going to be the kicker. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 wins. 10 wins. Sorry, 10 wins. I'm guessing they're going to set the line at 10, and they go on the road to LSU, Death Valley, end of the season. I'm going to give them the win. I think LSU is one of the more overrated teams. Obviously, very, very hard to play Death Valley. Probably will be a night game, ruckus environment, assuming LSU is a good team. Even if LSU is not a good team.
Yeah, they'll bring it. I mean, the fans at least.
I personally just don't see. We're doing LSU in the next video, and I have some serious gripes with them and where they're headed as a team. I'm going to give them the win. So I have them going 11-1. What's the number? 10? I'm guessing it's 10, 10 and a half.
It's 9.5. It's 9.5. So pretty much
so 10 wins. 10 cashes.
Plus 105 for that, which that actually seems, because they're playing
2 losses. Look at that schedule and tell me 2 losses.
Tell
me 2 losses on that schedule.
No, I'm just saying they're playing such a bad out of conference, and they're playing nobody from the East. So
tell me 2 losses on that team right now.
I mean, 1,000%.
Bama and LSU.
They could 1,000% lose to Bama for
and
sure.
And LSU.
See, I don't even really think they have much of a shot losing LSU. Is honestly.
So that's 11 wins.
I mean, I think Ole Miss could muck it up and score a zillion points on them. And
Ole Miss could muck it up, especially in Oxford.
Score. That's what I see. I just think they can score.
Yeah, but I don't think they'll score on this A&M team. I don't think this is how, if I were to bet this game, Texas A&M will run it down the throats because Ole Miss can't stop a nosebleed. It's such a bad. I don't even think Lane Kiffin practices defense at those practices.
They're bad defense.
I think Ole Miss will score. Ole Miss will always get their points. They got their points against Alabama. They'll always get their points. But if A&M just runs the ball, it's so hard when you have such a bad defense. Run the ball, just bleed clock, get the ball out of Matt Corral's hands. I don't see them I don't see them scoring enough points to beat A&M. I think that's and then again, when you play an SEC schedule, there will be tough games.
Yeah, so I don't know.
They
I
don't
don't
have that
know.
many tough games. Like they just don't.
No,
Auburn's
because
home,
they're not playing Florida or Georgia, so then
no.
it's like very easy.
So they only play Alabama.
And if you go Colorado
LSU.
as your toughest out of conference
Still
game,
smoked
it's
out them.
stupid.
Okay, we're hammering that, are we not? I mean, 9.5.
That actually seems like a
Plus
great
money.
line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so add that. I mean, we'll add that to our picks. I'm gonna hammer that one. I mean, they're gonna be. That's. I think that's the best win total we've had. This A&M team is gonna be good, man. It's gonna be.
I'm
really,
surprised
really
to
good
see
team.
9.5. Honestly, I feel like that's a little disrespectful, but
Especially
that
how
means
good
they're
they
gonna
played
need
at the end of the
they're
season.
gonna need to get upset twice and not like bad upsets. Quite honestly,
They played such good football to close out the season. I mean, they beat Florida, boat race Mississippi State, had a tough one against Arkansas, boat race South Carolina, beat LSU, beat Auburn at Auburn, beat Tennessee, and then beat a very good North Carolina team that was very locked in to play that game in the bowl game. They wanted to play and they played hard. Yep. I mean, that'll do it. That's where we're hitting over 9.5. I would try to get that in early. I could see it moving to 10, and 10 would be a damn shame because then you push with a loss at LSU and Bama. Even though I don't see them losing to LSU, and I think
Ole Miss.
Yeah, or Ole Miss. Which again, I'm not as high on Ole Miss as you are, but I think that
Ole Miss is a team that's gonna upset people. Though.
Yes, I agree. 100%. They'll play teams tough.
Because when you score
40 points, 100% agree.
You can upset people.
All right. I have one more thing. What's them to win the SEC West? Do we know? I'll try to find it.
I do not have that.
Let me pull that up.
But I think I can get it.
Here, you pull up the top playoff, and I'll pull up.
No, I have A&M.
Okay. They're plus 1,100 to win the SEC. I can't take that with how good Georgia is this year.
I don't love that. I also think there's a good shot they don't even make it because Bama.
Yeah, because Bama's good. Yeah.
That means you have to beat Bama and Georgia. That's tough. It's tough. I mean, that's really unlikely. Yeah. Especially the way they roll into those big games.
All right. Do you have anything else you want to say on this A&M team? I don't like either of those games. To make the playoffs, they're plus, I think, 400, plus 600.
Just want to see a respectable effort one time against
Alabama. Teams. Yeah, against good teams. I mean, they did beat Florida, but it's you're right. It's primarily against Alabama, and they really haven't been competitive. This year, I think they certainly can be, though. So that'll do it for Texas A&M, one of the Rock Boys teams to watch. When you play that good of defense and when you have that good of skilled players around a new quarterback, you're going to be in a lot of games. And that'll do it. Appreciate you guys watching once again. We're going to continue with more team previews as we get closer to the season. Let us know in the chat if you guys want us to talk about your team. Again, we love watching, breaking down, watching games, reading about games, listening to podcasts. We love all that. So thank you for watching. We'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.